Hello, Needham families. Mr. Purlee here, at home on this Christmas break, and I wanted to read a little story for you, share it. If you have a copy of this book, feel free to grab it now and bring it along, and you can read along with me, or you can just listen. One of my favorite holiday stories here, How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be that his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow's Christmas. It's practically here. Then he growled with his grinchy fingers, nervously drumming, I must find a way to keep Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and Who boys, they'd wake bright and early, and they'd rush for their toys. Oh, then the noise, noise, noise. That's the one thing he hated. It was the noise, noise, noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down for a feast, and they'd feast, feast, feast. And feast, feast, feast. They would feast on Who pudding and the rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, they'd stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, sing, sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. While for 53 years I've put up with it now, I must stop Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat, and then he made a quick Santa Claus hat and coat, and he chuckled and he clucked, what a great Grinchy trick! Why, with this coat and this hat, I'll look just like St. Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there were none to be found. Did that stop that old Grinch? No, that Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, and then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some empty old sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up!" And the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. All of their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof with empty bags in his fist. And then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue. With the little Whose stockings all hung in a row, these stockings, he grinned, will be the first things to go. Then he slithered and he slunk. With a smile most unpleasant, around the whole room he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates and drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn and plums. And he stuffed them in bags, and the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimbley. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's Feast. He took the Who Pudding. He took the Roast Beast. He cleaned out that icebox quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, then the Grinch, I'll stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard the small sound like the coo of a dove. And he turned around fast and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou Who, who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and she said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know that old Grinch, he was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on this side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there and I'll bring it back here." And that little fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head and he got her a drink and he sent her to bed. And then Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup. So he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. And the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went to the chimney himself, that old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing at the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a-snooze. When he packed up his sled, he packed it up with their presents, their ribbons, their wrappings, their tags, their tinsel, their trimmings and trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Poop-poop to the Who's, he was grinchishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up, I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two. Then all the Who's down in Whoville, they'll all cry boo-hoo. "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "I simply must hear." Then he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started real low, and it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it sounded merry. Very. He stared down at Whoville, and the Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. It hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, without packages, boxes, or bags. And then he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then maybe the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. And he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he, himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. How the Grinch Stole Christmas from Dr. Seuss, read by Mr. Purlee. And I hope you enjoyed that quick little story tonight, or at whatever time you are listening to this. I want to share with you also this QR code. This is our Reading for Rascals reading tracker. Answer a few questions there. I'm going to attach it in the email that sends this out as well. But if you scan that, hopefully it comes through on this screen. But if you scan that, you should take you to a Google form. Fill out the title, author, favorite part of the story. and it counts towards this month of December's Reading for Rascals books. We're asking students to read 2 books during the month of December to qualify for tickets, 500 free tokens in the game room, go-kart ride, or free mini golf. Students get to claim those tickets. We're going to continue that program in the spring as well. 4 books a month when we're in session. So hope you enjoyed that story. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you and your families. Have a safe break and look forward to seeing everybody back in January. Merry Christmas.